Everyone keeps talking about how John Doe needs buffs, and I don't think that's the full story. His numbers alone aren't really the problem. The issue is that he's meant to be a trapping killer, and half the time his trapping tools don't trap anyone. That isn't the best option. Let's talk about that. Okay, so John Doe's kit. Corrupt energy. Corrupt energy is like literally just a wall. That's the entire point of the ability. You slam it down, you seal someone against a wall, you put them in the corner, you turn it into a dead zone. And then they die or lose half their health because they have nowhere left to go. Except in a lot of loops, your wall just kind of ends before you fully seal the gap. And that's especially the case if they have game sense and know how to pre-run, and you're just left standing there with the godliest loop to ever be born in Forsaken. And they're just able to stroll around the end of it. And because of that, the wall doesn't really reliably do its job, and nobody really bothers to use it like a wall anymore. At least majority of John Doe players don't do it much. Nor do you really need to. Why would you, like? When you can just stand across the map and possibly hit a gashing wound worth of damage and the speed boost for a survivor who was never even in chase with you. A ranged aimable gashing wound on an 18-second cooldown. So that's what I'm going to cover first. I'm going to make the wall work. It's going to be the greatest wall to ever wall. And stop giving people a reason to ignore and let out their inner sniper dog. Okay, so what do I want to change on corrupt energy? Now this first change is going to sound counterintuitive, but I'm going to bump the hit damage from 12 to 14. Because I still want it to be like if you're able to snipe zone well, you're still getting damage off it. I want them to actually feel the hurt. But at the same time, I want to lower the amount of hits you can get from 4 to 2. Now I know this is kind of less satisfying, but there's a big issue with Sniper Doe, which is you're just kind of gambling on how the knockback sends you, especially for players on high ping. Getting sniped, they just have no control over if they get 48 damage spiked. It's still like to reward people for aiming well and like zoning well while catching you. But like I feel like being able to hit 48 damage isn't fair. So that means it caps out at 28, an M1 worth of damage, a fair trade for aiming well, snipe zoning well, all that. I also want to increase the amount of spikes John Doe has from 27 to 31. Now it could go higher from this. 33 is a good value too, like 33, 31 works, but I think 31 is a bit better. Because you don't want to make spikes too long, you want to keep them reasonable at the end of the day. Now 4 extra spikes might not sound like much off the top of your head, but like there's a lot of cases where like even just 2 more spikes would have fully zoned someone off. Like you'll have zones that finish like 5 studs too early, so I feel like this is the healthy range where you're not giving too much of a buff, but you're still helping him out. Anyways, for the speed on hit when you hit a spike and the cooldown, I'm not going to change it. He's already fine on that as it is. He doesn't need to wait any longer for spikes, especially after losing the ability to dump 4 hits into someone across the map. Though in my opinion, this is not the only thing that has to change. I also think we should change digital footprint. Now let me explain. Okay, so now digital footprint, and honestly this is more like an overhaul than a rebalance for the move. Like corrupt energy is the big fix, but digital footprint is just as important to John Doe's identity as a trapper. Both of these are its main trapping tools. Without the other, you'd be fried. And as for the first change, I want to make it so instead of corruption 1, digital footprint gives corruption 3. Now this isn't changing the damage it deals on its own when you walk into it. The difference with corruption 3 is that it pierces overheal and resistance is like true damage. But only on this ability, to be clear, not corruption as a whole. Like trail, same as before. Because I want stepping in digital footprint to always be something you have to respect. You can't just pop slate skin and you don't take the damage. And you'll see why this is so important later. Okay, so I want to change the corruption damage itself too, and you'll see why. So if you trigger a footprint in 75 studs to John Doe or less, it deals 19 damage as usual. Just with corruption 3, so it goes past slate skin or Dusik or overheal and all the things like that. Now the thing is, if it's triggered past 75 studs, that damage jumps all the way to 40. And because it's corruption 3, that also pierces through your overheal slate skin. Now you're probably wondering why do I want distance-based damage over time? Well, this is because I also want to change how the speed boost works. If you're within 75 studs of JD, well, you get speed 1 for 10 seconds, like it's as normal. But if he's more than 75 studs away, he only gets speed 1 for 5 seconds. So if your teammate triggers a trap across the map, you're not the only one getting hurt from it. Because like as it is now, if your teammate trips a trap, you're the one who's getting punished. They're taking 19 damage max. If they're noob, they're slate skinning and they're taking 0 damage. But the John Doe on you has speed 1 for 10 seconds. So I feel like a more balanced way to do this is the person in chase is getting punished, but so is the person across the map, and they can't bypass that fact. Also, as a smaller thing, now this won't matter in the future because he's getting reworked, well, and N7 clones to not be able to trigger digital footprints, because that kind of like defeats the purpose of all this. Then this should hopefully better balance the hurt to be on both players instead of just all on the person in chase. On top of this, digital footprints are 20% bigger. Some doorways are just too big that used to not be too big. So this hopefully is able to balance out wider doorways and still let John Doe trap off what he wants to trap. Anyways, on other things, error 404, natural malevolence, unstoppable, all that, none of that's getting touched. They already do their job and they are simple enough. Dragging them into this, I don't think it's worth it. I think they're fine as is. I don't think it's worth changing them just for the sake of, oh look, I changed the entirety of John Doe's kit. So anyways, that's the whole thing. He's still Mr. Doe. Most of his kit doesn't change that much. I just took away the free damage you might get from spikes across the map and made him a bit more of a zoning character. Also took away your teammates being able to sabotage you so much without them being punished themselves. Also, yes, if you think about it, I just spent like half a video explaining why a wall needs to be a better wall, and this is how. Riveting stuff, I know.